Hey everybody, Forrest back with you at Life Assist, clinical product specialist and licensed paramedic. And today's training is AEDs versus cardiac monitors and what's the difference. Okay, gonna go ahead and start with AEDs. I got my AED here, got my cardiac monitor here. What does AED stand for? It stands for Automated External Defibrillator. Okay, what does that mean? Well, basically this means that this device treats people that are in sudden cardiac arrest with an electrical shock, okay? So, who can use this device? Believe it or not, AEDs require minimal training, if none. You don't have to be an EMT, you don't have to be a paramedic, you can be anybody out in public, and if you see one, you can grab it and use it if you think somebody might need it, okay? So, how does it work? Basically, very, very simple. When you power it on and you place the what are called defibrillation pads onto the patient, the computer inside will analyze what's going on in their heart rhythm at the time, okay? And if this computer determines that the patient needs a shock, it'll go ahead with voice prompts and prompt you to go ahead and shock the patient. So literally, analytically, the person who's using this doesn't need to do anything. All they need to do is hit power, put the pads on, and listen to what the AED tells you. That's how simple it is, okay? One thing about the AED to note is that it does not monitor vital signs, so it's not monitoring blood pressure or pulse rate, or SpO2 or end-tidal CO2 or anything like that. Its sole job is just to shock, okay? You might be wondering, well, are there any other, what are the special features besides that? There are some good features. Number one, sort of touch base on it, it's got voice prompts. All AEDs are gonna have voice prompts. So it's gonna walk you through every single step of the way. Nowadays, you have options where not only voice, but others will have video prompts. So they'll have video displays. There's CPR feedback options where the pads are smart. They're called smart pads, and they can determine whether or not, if the person is performing CPR, whether they're pushing hard or fast enough. So it kind of coaches the person, in a situation where they, possibly could be nervous. Another thing it has what's called a metronome. So after a patient is or is not shocked, when the person's doing CPR, it has a little clicker that clicks, and it keeps you on pace so you're doing CPR at the right rate.
Push harder. Push harder. Good compressions.
And these can be used on both adults and pediatrics, right? Infants, neonates. As you can see here, this particular one has the adult pads that we were looking at, but it has this cool little device, what's called a pediatric key. And when you insert the pediatric key, it actually lowers the energy to appropriate the shock for whoever the person is, okay? Who makes these AEDs? Well, there's a lot of manufacturers that make them. The ones that we sell here at LifeSys that we pretty much display on our website is going to be Philips. Philips has a few models. There's DefibTech. DefibTech has a couple different models. And then there is also Zoll, who offers some other models as well. Okay? So that's it. That's how simple this AED has one job, and it does it very well, and it definitely can save lives. Okay, let's move on to the cardiac monitor. Okay, what is a cardiac monitor? As you can see, a little bit of a difference in the look here, but to keep it simple, a cardiac monitor is a portable device that basically monitors our patient's vital signs. Vital signs, typical ones that we're always looking at, of course, are blood pressure, heart rate, their respiratory rate. We're looking at their O2 saturation. We're looking at how much CO2 they're blowing off. Other things that we're looking at are temperature. We can look at their heart rhythm, their EKG rhythm. So in kind of a whole, this is just a big old monitoring device that allows clinicians, paramedics, and EMTs to kind of see where our patient is at, how they're doing, and then it kind of can take us down a treatment path, okay? And on top of that, it has the ability to shock a patient. So cardiac type interventions. Couple of them would be shocking, just like the AED does. Other interventions that the cardiac monitor does is it does what's called pacing and cardioversion. One is for a heart rate that's too slow and one is for a heart rate that's too fast, okay? So as you can see, it's got multiple parameters and multiple applications to it. So who can use these? With a big difference between the AEDs and the cardiac monitors, the cardiac monitor requires a little bit more training. So someone like an advanced EMT and of course a paramedic is probably going to be more apt to using something like this because it requires the person to understand what is being displayed on the screen and what it all means. And then when it comes to the cardiac therapy or the cardiac interventions, instead of the AED controlling when the patient gets a shock or analyzing, the actual user is looking at the monitor and looking at the cardiac rhythm, and they're the ones making the decision whether or not the patient is going to get shocked or not. So basically the clinician is in control where the AED is in control on this side, okay? So, any other special features? There are actually. Couple of the newer cardiac monitors now are also incorporating video intubation, where they have a video laryngoscope that has a USB plug that plugs in, and then on the screen it'll open up video so you can intubate. There's ultrasound being offered now, where you can do ultrasound. You'll have a screen up there where you can perform that. So a lot of interesting functions here. Again, these for the age range are going to be exactly the same, adult, pediatric, infant, it doesn't matter. The only thing that would change is going to be maybe the size of certain of the consumables that you're using. Like you're going to use a smaller blood pressure cuff for a kid. They have different size electrodes. The O2 sensors are, specially made for different size people or different age. So things like that, but the display on the screen is going to be exactly the same. Another thing too that the cardiac monitors do is they allow you to input all kinds of data. So depending on what the call is, lots of data can be entered here and printed out. So at the end of the day, you can get a nice report of everything that you did. Where most of the time the AED is not going to have that. It might have something that you can plug in and get kind of a little bit of a display, but this is going to give you detailed patient information. Okay, so who manufactures our cardiac monitors? I call them the big three. You guys probably know them. We got the Physio Life Pack, right? That's one. The Zolex series is another big player. And then there is the Philips Tempus, which is what I have in front of me today. Purchase order with us, and then we went ahead and processed the order.
Oh my God, Forrest, have you heard the news? I don't even care. Look, LifePak 35, FDA approved.
Oh my God, I gotta tell everybody. Wanted to note one thing, the Tempus is still fairly new. The Physio Life Pack and the Zols are one-piece units, and the Tempus is a two-piece unit. So keep that in mind. What they did is they took the therapy portion that does all the cardiac interventions and they put it as a separate device. So this part right here is going to be doing the shocking, the pacing, and the cardioverting. But via Bluetooth, it is connected. So it's going to input and give you all the data you need. So they're separate but together in a lot of ways. Okay, so that's pretty much the cardiac monitor. So now what I wanted to talk about just briefly is what if you have a customer who says, well, I have an AED, I would like a cardiac monitor, but I don't need all the bells and whistles. I don't need the ability to do all the, advanced cardiac, interventions that we talked about. Well, I got a solution for you. So this right here is the Zoe monitor. You may have heard it or seen it. This is a great device for an agency that probably uses AEDs. but they want the ability to do electric patient monitoring and get all those vital signs we talked about, but not have all the extra fancy bells and whistles that the cardiac monitors have, okay? So wanted to introduce you to the Zoe. Again, my reference doc that'll be attached to this video will have a lot of extra information about all of these devices. Okay, final point. What are the key differences, okay? AED, shock only, okay? Cardiac monitors patient vital signs in detail, plus allows foreshocking and other cardiac interventions. Users, minimal to no training whatsoever. Anyone off the street could turn this on and follow directions. This is going to require advanced training, advanced EMT paramedic level, because they have to analyze all the data that's put on the screen. And then finally, the cost. AEDs are going to run $2 to $6K. Big cardiac monitors can range $35,000 to up to $60,000. And then the Zoe that we showed you, that's going to run around $5,000 or $10,000. So as you can see, there's a big kind of swing in price, and depending on what your customer is looking for, most likely one of these will fit their needs. Okay, so that's the difference between AEDs and cardiac monitors. Hope you learned a lot today. We'll see you on the next video where we're going to talk about the difference between electrodes and defibrillation pads. Okay, thanks for watching. See you next time.